Part 21. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 201. Chapter 201 If the pain is not on you, what qualifications do you have to speak? Clang. Puff. In the passionate music, the blood in Qian Yue's veins seemed to be on fire, and she urgently needed to vent. She took out the tang sword in her hand and looked at the zombies rushing forward. At this time, she had no fear in her heart, only boundless fighting spirit. The tang knife was swung, and the sharp blade cut through the air, causing a harsh whistle. The zombies that were charging could not get close at all. The knife struck down and was completely chopped into two pieces starting from the shoulder. Blood splattered, but Qian Yue didn't even blink. In her world, she seemed to be wearing a battle armor. There were countless enemies running towards her, and all she had to do was kill them. Kill. Kill them all. Leave no one behind. The passionate sound of the piano stirred up the blood in the hearts of hundreds of female warriors. The almost transformational playing made many women almost go crazy, but their reason was still there. They just abandoned the fear in their hearts and transformed into the god of war, invincible. Lin Fan didn't know when he appeared on the city gate tower, looking down at the woman who seemed to be immersed in her own world, immersed in playing. He didn't understand the piano, and he didn't think the piano sounded good. Maybe it was because times had changed. People prefer modern music. But at this moment, he changed his mind. The reason why he didn't think it sounded good was because he hadn't met anyone who could really play, and the Mu Qingxiu in front of him was a real musical master. She really did it, infecting others with the sound of the piano, and pulling them into her world, just like in front of her eyes. The impassioned music made him feel like he was on the battlefield where two armies were fighting. Soldiers were everywhere fighting, horses were neighing. Lin Fan, it can be felt that the recovery speed of the almost exhausted wood element energy in the body has more than doubled at this moment. You know, Mu Qingxiu is just an ordinary person, and the music played by ordinary people can actually double his energy recovery speed. This is simply terrifying. There was a reason why Mu Qingxiu was able to travel all over the empire before the end, and these videos that were broadcast twice or even multiple times on TV could not show the true charm of Mu Qingxiu at all. Only when you are there can you understand how terrifying Mu Qingxiu is. His skills are close to the Tao. No wonder before the end of the world, those famous masters with high eyes have praised him. This song should only exist in heaven. How many times can you hear it in the world? To be able to express such emotion is probably because you will die if you hear the Tao in the morning. Already. Lin Fan couldn't imagine how terrifying Mu Qingxiu would be if she was given a vocal power. Qin Xian? Or the piano demon? A wisp of piano music, killing tens of thousands of zombies. It's not impossible. However, Lin Fan just thought about these things for the time being. His principles will not change. No matter how outstanding a woman is, her superpowers will not be passed on to her, no matter how good she is. It is said that 1,000-mile horse always exists, but Bull does not always exist. He is Bull, and he has no shortage of 1,000-mile horses. Closing his eyes and enjoying the music of Mu Qingxiu's piano, Lin Fan's perception spread. The female warriors under the city gate were stimulated and inspired by the music. The movements of their hands were faster and sharper, and the speed of killing zombies was doubled than before. Hundreds of female warriors stared at the zombie tide as it continued to expand outwards. No matter how crazy the zombie crowd was, they could not move forward one step. The sound of the piano was so exciting and powerful that it was unimaginable that it was played by such a weak woman as Mu Qingxiu. Lin Fan felt that he was indeed right to bring Mu Qingxiu back this time. When he was usually bored, he could hear Mu Qingxiu playing for him alone is a feeling that is simply not enjoyable. The sound of the piano gradually stopped, but the female warriors below seemed to still be in that artistic conception, unable to extricate themselves at all. Lin Fan didn't say anything, and looked at Mu Kingxiu quietly. Perhaps it was because the playing was too strenuous. There was a slight sweat on the woman's forehead, her shoulders were rising and falling, and she was breathing lightly. You play well. I found that it was indeed a good decision to bring you back. I heard that you are good at singing and dancing. Let me show you how to dance someday. Lin Fan sat down next to him, waved his hand, and a tea set appeared on the table. Generally, people who play the piano should be good at tea. These are high-quality tea sets, and the water is also high-quality mountain spring water. I want to try it. Mu Kingxiu stared blankly at the sudden appearance of Lin Fan, completely unable to react. Why did such a big living person like Lin Fan suddenly appear next to her? However, thinking of Lin Fan's ability, Mu Kingxiu was relieved. As for what was in front of her, not to mention the tea set, Mu Kingxiu is really good at tea art. She picked up the guqin and put it next to her. Mu Kingxiu picked up the teapot and started to boil water. Her flawless bare hands pulled the sleeves, and her every move was full of fairy spirit. For a long time, Zhang Kaiyu recovered from that artistic conception and turned to look at Mu Kingxiu. She was about to praise her, but she found that at some point, a man sat next to Mu Kingxiu. The man's back was turned to her. The familiar figure from behind made Zhang Kaiyu recognize at a glance that the person with his back to her was Lin Fan. She hurriedly ran to Lin Fan and knelt down. Zhang Kaiyu lowered her head and said in fear, I don't know that the Lord is here, please punish me. Zhang Kaiyu moved quickly. Lin Fan turned around and saw that she was already kneeling on the ground. He rolled his eyes. Lin Fan pulled her to his side and sat down. He put his arm around her waist and said, it's okay. Take a good look at Kingxiu. How about making tea and trying Kingxiu's craftsmanship together later? The squad leader, who had just recovered his senses, was also startled when he saw Lin Fan. He quickly stepped forward to salute. Lin Fan waved his hand, leave me alone, just pretend I don't exist. Just do whatever you have to do. What? The squad leader twitched his horns, stopped, and did not come closer. Lin Fan didn't know the art of tea, but looking at Mu Kingxiu's movements, a sense of elegance arose spontaneously. It was obviously just a few teapots and a few teacups. But different people have completely different feelings when making it. In Mu Kingxiu's hands, the simple teapot seems to have come to life. As the water is boiled, the aroma of tea soon fills the air. Mu Kingxiu picks up the teapot, poured 3 cups into the teacup. The first cup was handed to Lin Fan, the second cup was handed to Zhang Kaiyu, and the last cup was picked up by himself. Lin Fan didn't know how to taste tea, so he didn't make any concessions. In a move that makes people laugh, he simply picked up the teacup and drank it all in one gulp. The hot tea poured into his stomach. It was bitter at first and then sweet, and then the fragrance left on his lips and teeth. You are good at making tea and you play the piano very well. You have changed my view on the piano. I am in a good mood today. I see that you have many questions. You can ask them now and I can answer them for you. When Mu Kingxiu heard this, her little face froze for a moment, and she thought for a moment and asked, when we come back, is the box in your hand a time bomb? He nodded without hesitation. Lin Fan said at that time that it was normal for Mu Kingxiu to react if he didn't run away and wait to be blown up. It is indeed a time bomb, equivalent to 100 kilograms of TNT explosives, which can send the Olin Hotel directly into the sky and completely wipe it from the earth. After receiving Lin Fan's personal admission, Mu Kingxiu's pupils suddenly shrank. Obviously she was frightened. There are thousands of survivors in the Olin Hotel. You are like this, is it too cruel? Cruel? Lin Fan repeated these 2 words and chuckled. Is it cruel? Maybe. Have you ever thought about it? If it weren't for my strong strength, I would be the miserable one. I have no other advantages, except that my ears are better. After we came out, I heard a lot of sounds that I didn't like. I'm not that arrogant. You can scold me as much as you want, but the prerequisite is that you don't want to be heard by me, and don't do anything to me, because I don't like to hear it. If I hear it, then sorry, in order to avoid trouble in the future, I can only give them a ride. It's true that there is no tax on bragging, and it's okay to say harsh words, but I hate trouble, and I also have a bit of persecutory paranoia. I always think about some things that are not there, such as, what if they really have some adventure? For example, cheats, systems, etc., what should I do if they come to me for revenge? In order to prevent this kind of thing from happening, I had no choice but to say sorry and send them back to the West. That was the end of it. Putting down the teacup in his hand, Lin Fan poked his head forward and got close to Mu Qingxiu. Seeing her lowering her head in fear, Lin Fan took 2 sips of Mu Qingxiu's body fragrance and said with a smile, since you are like this, asked, I also have a question to ask you. I wonder if you can answer it for me. You ask. Mu Qingxiu was a little panicked, always having a bad feeling. You should know what those men at the Olin Hotel did, right? Although there is no shame in trading food, you should know that, right? Hearing this, Mu Qingxiu nodded slightly. You see, you know all this, but have you ever thought about what would happen to you if you didn't have this halo of protection? Your beautiful face is like a piece of meat exuding a deadly fragrance. And you are surrounded by hungry wolves. You can't even protect yourself, so why should you worry about others? Just because they don't show off their power to you, do they mean they are good people? How about we make a bet? You personally select 10 women from the Olin Hotel and let them tell us whether those men deserve to die. If more than 5 people say you don't deserve to die, you win. I can grant you a request. If you lose, let me think about it. Lifting his head, Lin Fan tapped his index finger on the side of his head with an indulgent expression. Suddenly, Lin Fan's eyes lit up, and he approached Mu Qingxiu again and said, if you lose, those murderous jobs will be done in the future. How about leaving it to you? 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, how about you kill them all? Want to take a gamble? The frightened figure leaned back and squatted beside him. Mu Qingxiu had a frightened look on her face and kept shaking her head. No, I don't want to bet with you. Why? Are the stakes unfair? Lin Fan looked confused, but quickly adjusted and continued, then changed the bet. Since you like saving people so much, then if you win, I will solve the plight of the Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City. You still don't know, right? Hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City, are being trapped inside by tens of millions of corpses. They will all be consumed slowly. How about that? Is this a big enough bet? Don't you like saving people? Do you want to give it a try? Mu Qingxiu looked pale and kept shaking her head. Lin Fan looked very disappointed. Why not? Can you give me a reason? This bet is obviously better for you. Mu Qingxiu bit her lip, almost bleeding, because there is no need to gamble. I know I will definitely lose, not to mention 10, even 100, it is impossible for 5 women to think that Olin Hotel those men didn't deserve to die. I lost. I'm sorry, it didn't happen to me. I have no right to speak at all. The pain is not mine. Who am I to say that those people are innocent? Smacking his lips, Lin Fan picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup of hot tea, then raised his head and drank it all. It's boring. You thought you could have a good show, but you gave up before it even started. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 202. Chapter 202, Excited Zhang Kaiyu, Mu Qingxiu's transformation. Lin Fan didn't mean to hit Mu Qingxiu, he didn't have that kind of bad taste, but Mu Qingxiu's compassionate look made Lin Fan a little uncomfortable with it. Just like the keyboard warrior on the internet, you don't know anything, so you judge the quality of others without authorization, and even feel pity for those criminals. Yes, the look of remorse is indeed pitiful and worthy of sympathy, but this is to judge the criminals as innocent. The reason? The perpetrators deserve pity, but what about the victims? Who do they talk to about their pain? It's not wrong to be compassionate towards others. The wrong thing is that you don't have the ability to pity others and blame others for their actions, just like Mu King-seo. She is the canary in the cage. She can't control herself, so she still cares about the life and death of others. This is the most ridiculous thing. Lin Fan didn't think he was a good person, nor did he think that everything he did was right. Strictly speaking, the things he did were enough to kill him 10,000 times before the end, but so what? He has powerful enough abilities that no one in this world can punish him, so he can do whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants? If Mu King-seo had such strength, she could save as many people as she wanted, but the reality is that she didn't. But after all, Mu King-seo was not too stupid, and he soon understood what she had done. To be honest, Lin Fan felt it was a pity. If Mu King-seo didn't make a bet with him, he would not see many interesting scenes. I have never seen Mu King-seo's expressions of despair, helplessness, and disbelief. Even hesitation, struggle, panic, horror, and numbness. This kind of expression can only be seen when Mu King-seo kills someone personally. It is not known what Mu King-seo's expression will be like after turning black. It is quite a pity. But the current expression of sluggishness, hesitation, and self-doubt is also pretty good. Beside Lin Fan, Jang Kyu looked at Mu King-seo, who looked as helpless as a wounded little animal, and sighed in her heart. Mu King-seo was like a flower growing up in a greenhouse, even though she thought she had seen a lot. In fact, all she saw was relatively shallow darkness, and she had always been well protected. Now the bloody reality of Chikuakyo is before her. It is too sudden and cruel for her, but when she accepts it, understands it, she will usher in a transformation. Picking up the teapot and helping Lin Fan fill up the teacup, Jang Kyu acted extremely well behaved and docile, fully displaying the temperament of a good wife and loving mother. He picked up the teacup and drank the hot tea in one gulp. When he put the teacup down, an extra jade bottle appeared on the table. Jang Kyu's eyes trembled slightly. Regarding the jade bottle that suddenly appeared on the table, she knew what it was. She had seen this thing many times. The words Source Power Crystal were so conspicuous on the jade bottle. This thing was worth 15,000 judgment coins. Countless female warriors work hard to gain military exploits every day and want to exchange one. With just one, the strength of an ordinary female warrior can be greatly increased, surpassing the efforts of other female warriors who don't know how long. This is also the fastest way to make progress. For example, Lu Minjia was an ordinary girl when she first came here. She took a source power crystal and directly broke through to the Qi condensation realm. The Qi condensation realm is a name given by the female warriors themselves, which corresponds to three-dimensional attributes exceeding 20 points. The next realm is the Ninggang realm of the first-generation female warriors like Li Fengqiao. If you are not gifted with superpowers, you will rarely make a big breakthrough in terms of intelligence. Intelligence does not only represent human wisdom, but also represents mental strength. Only when you get superpowers will your intelligence attributes increase with the breakthrough, and your mental strength will increase with the breakthrough. If the strength is not enough, what can I use to control the superpower? The source of power crystal is the fastest shortcut for a female warrior to improve her strength. One crystal can take less than half a month of hard work for an ordinary female warrior. How could Jang Kyu not be excited when such a source of power crystal suddenly appeared in front of her eyes? Now her daughter Qin Yuwei's strength is very low. She wants to save money to exchange it for Qin Yuwei for a source power crystal, which can quickly improve Qin Yuwei's strength. However, the source power crystal is too expensive, and she needs to save at least one. After many weeks, Lin Fan suddenly placed a source power crystal in front of her. What did this mean? For her? She remembered that when Lu Mingjia first came, Lin Fan rewarded her with one for Yu Yiren's sake. She didn't have one yet, but she didn't dare to complain. At most, she was a little disappointed. Now, Lin Fan could hear Zhang Kaiyu's rapid breathing clearly. There was no difference between Yu Yi and Zhang Kaiyu. They were both his women. Taking over his mother would not be too much, right? Besides, Qin Yuwei's performance under the city wall was really good. Although she had the help of Mu Qingxiu's piano music, these were only auxiliary functions, just like mud can't hold up the wall. How about Zuch Wolong? Can't you still help Adu? This is for Qin Yuwei. You have done a good job during this period. I am very satisfied. Patting Zhang Kaiyu's mature and plump breasts, Lin Fan gestured, don't look at me, just take it. Zhang Kaiyu beamed with joy and excitedly grabbed the jade vase on the table. She looked at Lin Fan gratefully and took the initiative to move closer to Lin Fan and kiss her. Lin Fan naturally wouldn't refuse the beauty's kiss. After a moment, the two of them separated, looking up at Lin Fan with beautiful eyes. Zhang Kaiyu said gratefully, my lord, thank you for your reward. I will definitely teach Yu Wei well and let her work harder so that she can clear all obstacles for my lord. Okay, stop flattering, get up and walk with me. After the city wall was built, I haven't had a good walk around yet. Patting Zhang Kaiyu's breasts wrapped in flesh-colored crystal stockings with his palm, Lin Fan stood up, stretched his muscles and bones, and looked at Mu Qingxiu, who was still a little dazed. Hey, come to your senses, stay with me. Take a walk together. Mu Qingxiu was awakened by Lin Fan's voice, looked up at Lin Fan, stood up silently, walked to Lin Fan's side obediently, followed step by step to the left, while Zhang Kaiyu obediently walked to Lin Fan's right. Walking on the city wall on the road, Lin Fan admired the world outside the city wall. Before the end of the world, Lin Fan often stood on a high place and looked at the prosperous magic city. However, at that time, he was like a passerby. Before the end of the world, he was like a passerby. He was out of place in the bustling city. But it was different now. Everything in front of him was waiting for him to conquer. Sooner or later, everything in front of him would be his territory. He would be the king of this land. Lin Fan did not speak. Zhang Kaiyu and Mu Qingxiu, who were accompanying them, also remained silent. It was very quiet between the three of them. Mu Qingxiu seemed to have recovered from the previous blow, looking at the dilapidated city on both sides of the city wall with indescribable confusion. I heard that you built the city wall by yourself, right? Slightly turning his head and looking at Mu Qingxiu, who was speaking, Lin Fan said, strictly speaking, it's just me and Suzai Luo. If it was just me, it would probably be a simple wall. Suzai Luo provided me with the design. Drawing, by the way, she is my woman now. This city wall is the result of the two of us. This city wall is really grand and spectacular. With this city wall, everything in the city will no longer be threatened by zombies. You are a qualified king. Mu Qingxiu's voice was cold and indescribably pleasant. Looking at Mu Qingxiu with surprised eyes, Lin Fan almost doubted whether this woman had been taken away from her. The first words were quite satisfactory, but the next words were like someone else. Same. Are you okay? Why don't you go back and check it out? Lin Fan felt a little uneasy. Don't be fooled by his attack. This is not the result he wanted. Mu Qingxiu rolled her beautiful eyes and rolled her eyes with a slightly playful and charming look. Lin Fan was dumbfounded. She was even more suspicious that something was definitely wrong with Mu Qingxiu. Normal Mu Qingxiu would never have such a vivid expression. I'm fine, I'm not sick, I just understand something. Although what you did was cruel, you protected this piece of pure land. I understand the ugliness of human nature. In many books, the evil of human nature is analyzed. It is very clear, such as the theory of human evolution, that the real terror in the world is not monsters, but humans. Mu Kingxiu looked at the dilapidated, lonely world in front of her, filled with despair, and said calmly, this apocalypse broke out so suddenly, so fast, and so violently that everyone was caught off guard. No one knew about this zombie crisis. What is the reason? Maybe this crisis is us humans. You have killed many people, and your sins are serious. Thinking from another perspective, isn't this a necessary means to protect yourself and your power? No one knows what will happen in the future. The best way to protect yourself is to nip all the evil in the bud. I have seen your cruelty, I have seen your sins, and now I have seen your responsibilities, everything you shoulder. People are divided into two sides, angels and demons. The cruel side of your devil is left to the enemy, while the angels are kind and merciful. One side was left to the women in the city. You could have squeezed those women endlessly because they couldn't resist. You could do whatever you wanted, but you didn't. You gave them a comfortable life and reorganized the order of the inner city. For those women, I should be very grateful to you. As a king, you are qualified. You are cruel and yet do not lack kindness to your people. I believe that maybe one day, under your leadership, the world will finally restore the order before the end of the world, but, maybe you are the only man left in the world. Looking at Mu Kingxiu dumbfounded, Lin Fan had a little self-doubt now. Is it really as good as Mu Kingxiu said? He really just wanted to kill all the men and build a force with only women. Why did he do the right thing when it came to Mu Kingxiu? Lin Fan was confused. Was he really doing the right thing? Looking at the serious expression on Mu Kingxiu's face, Lin Fan felt that something was really wrong with this girl. Maybe she had read too much the theory of human evolution and was confused by it. The influence of the bet makes me think that all the men in the Olin Hotel deserve to die, and maybe this girl has brainwashed herself? Lin Fan could only explain it this way, but this is a good thing. Although it is too arbitrary to say that the whole world is full of bad people, for people like Mu Kingxiu, this is not a bad thing. Instead of letting others hurt you, it is better to hurt yourself. Others, so that you can better protect yourself. Although this is a heresy, it is different now. It is the end of the world, and the end of the world requires a set of own laws. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 203. Chapter 203. The shock and longing imprinted in my heart. The second team retreats. A team comes forward. Call, call, call. The voice of the team leader from the front came. Qin Yue followed Lu Minjiao as if she had just woken up from a dream, panting heavily, with uncontrollable excitement in her eyes. How about it? Exciting, right? Do you feel that you have become a lot stronger? Lu Minjiao next to her raised her hand and patted Qin Yue on the shoulder, with a bright smile on her dirty little face. After coming back to her senses, looking at Lu Minjiao's bright smile, Qin Yue clenched her small hand and felt some power in her body. Nodded with joy, well, I feel it. My strength is much stronger than before, and I can still feel that there is a force running in my body, as if it is nourishing and strengthening my body. Now it's right. Lu Minjiao raised her little hand and wiped it on her face with the cuff of her sleeve, which made her already pretty face even more discolored. She didn't mind at all. I was like this on my first day too. Take your time. I have a sister. Cover you, let's become stronger together. You are Yueyu's friend, that is, my friend. Hello, my name is Wu Menfei. Across Lu Minjiao, Wu Menfei, who was standing next to her, extended her hand to Qin Yue. Unlike Lu Minjiao, Wu Menfei was more mature. She exuded the temperament of a big sister, quiet and elegant. Wu Menfei's face was not as beautiful as Lu Minjiao's. Obviously pays more attention to appearance, unlike Lu Minjiao, who yells and screams. After holding the Tang Dao, he looks like a happy little pony, without any weakness from before. Hello Sister Fei, my name is Qin Yue, just call me Wei. Holding Wu Menfei's little hand, Qin Yue accepted all her advances. She was new here, and even with the help of her mother, she still had to have her own small circle. Qin Yue was young and had a sweet voice. She said, Sister Fei, the relationship between several people quickly became closer. Next to Wu Menfei, the Bai Fume who came out of the Zhongyuan villa area all said hello. If it weren't for the discipline, they couldn't walk around casually, and they would probably all run to Qin Yue. Here we go. These girls are not stupid. Qin Yue's identity is the same as Lu Minjiao's. They both have a backing. It will definitely not hurt to be friends with Qin Yue. After experiencing the initial discomfort, Qin Yue soon adapted to it. As his strength slowly increased, he became more able to deal with zombies. Even without the assistance of Mu Qingxiu Kainyin, he had no mercy in killing zombies. The sun gradually set in the sky, and the sky gradually dimmed. Qin Yue, she didn't know how many times she changed formations and retreated to the second line again. Before she could catch her breath, she felt someone tap her on the shoulder. What's wrong? Looking at Lu Minjiao in confusion, Qin Yue was a little confused. Just after asking, she saw Lu Minjiao's little hand pointing forward. Look over there. There, Qin Yue looked forward subconsciously. Her eyes were stunned for a moment, and she was so shocked that she couldn't speak. In front of her sight, an cocky giant with a height of tens of meters appeared. On the shoulders of the cocky giant dozens of women were squatting or sitting on the city wall. The cocky giants were walking towards the city wall. Wherever they passed, large swathes of zombies were trampled to pieces. The cocky giants were so terrifying that the zombies couldn't even catch them. Unable to hold the giants' feet, the terrifying power brought about by walking directly knocked hundreds of zombies away. Before these zombies could fall from the sky, large cones rose from the ground, hanging all the corpses like strings of candied haws. On the pointed cone, wherever the cocky giant passed, the not too crowded sea of corpses directly turned into a blank area. In front of this giant, the so-called sea of corpses was like a bunch of small ants that could be stepped on casually. Hundreds of dead. How about it? Shocking, right? My mother told me that this is the divine power given by the Lord. This cocky giant was summoned by the mistress Li Psyche. Isn't it cool? Listening to the voices coming from around her, Qin Yue nodded subconsciously. Cool, it's so cool. Qin Yue has also heard Zhang Kaiyu talk about divine power, but she has never actually seen it. She cannot understand in detail how powerful and shocking it is. Even from Lin Fan's place, she only saw the space door opened casually. Or the terrifying man-eating tree that was born from scratch. But those were far less shocking than the cocky giant that was dozens of meters tall in front of me. Big Mac. It was just like the legendary Titan. All the zombies are ants, and they are all trampled to death. This is so shocking and terrifying. With such a terrifying giant, the so-called zombie tide is probably a joke, right? No amount of zombie tides can resist such a terrifying giant. Pushing all the way. No matter how many there are, there is not enough for this cocky giant to step on. Looking at the cocky giant in front of her, she has a desire for infinite divine power for the first time. Just when Qin Yue was distracted, the cocky giant has arrived in front of his eyes. Dozens of female warriors were moving around, quickly jumped off the giant's shoulders, and fell directly to the ground. As the dozens of female warriors landed, an evil aura hit her face. Qin Yue was aroused by this evil aura, and instantly he woke up and looked at the dozens of female warriors who jumped down. It was like facing a prehistoric beast. The terrifying bloody evil energy seemed to condense into a terrifying shadow behind the dozens of female warriors. The next second, like he's going to devour her. "Hello. Come to your senses, are you new here?" A crisp voice came, and Qin Yue felt a tap on her shoulder, and her head felt clear. She quickly woke up from that illusion, and looked in front of her blankly, only to find that she didn't know when there was a playful person in front of her. A girl. A girl is like the girl next door. He was taking a cool breath, with a lollipop in his mouth, and he was looking at her with concern. Ah, I. Qin Yue was stunned. She didn't even remember what the girl in front of her asked her just now. Lu Minjiao came forward with a smile, put her arms around Qin Yue's shoulders, and said with a smile, "Sister Psyche, this is the little girl I just recognized. She will be sent by Aunt Kaiyu at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She belongs to Aunt Kaiyu daughter." Li Psyche nodded thoughtfully and looked Qin Yue up and down. She said she felt something was wrong when she looked at this girl. She looked like a newcomer and was very weak. She could even bear the evil aura of the female warriors under her. "I can't believe there is such a weak female warrior in the inner city. It turns out to be a related household." Turning her head and glancing at Lu Minjiao, Li Psyche raised her eyebrows and said disdainfully, "Who are you? Don't get close to me. Look at your dirty look. Stay away from me. Don't dirty my clothes, I don't know such a dirty person." Lu Minjiao's little face swelled, and she wiped her face hard with her little hands. "Sister Psyche, I am Yu. Look at me again, do you recognize me?" Lu Minjiao also moved her little face forward. Hearing this, Li Psyche pretended to look around, took a few steps back in shock, and said in horror, "You are actually Yu. My God, those who didn't know would have thought you crawled out of the pit. You are so far away from me, stay away. Don't say you know me after being so dirty. It's too embarrassing." Lu Minjiao squinted her eyes and looked at Li Psyche aggrievedly without saying a word. She looked like an abandoned puppy. Li Psyche rolled her eyes and raised her hand. She rubbed her little head and said helplessly, "I'm trying to do this again. I'm scared of you. Look at Fifi. She's as clean as a lady. Why are you so dirty and turned into a little pig?" Li Psyche, she is a free-spirited person, and she hit it off with Lu Minjiao. Although they have not known each other for a long time, they have a good relationship. Li Psyche does not look down on Lu Minjiao because of the difference in status. On the contrary, the two of them are talking and laughing. Withdrawing her hand, Li Psyche looked at the somewhat reserved Qin Yue and said, "Since she is Manager Zhang's daughter, just like Yu, call me Sister Psyche. Work hard. It's getting late. It's time to go into the city. It's evening. Zombies are more ferocious and easily injured." Qin Yue still didn't know Li Psyche's identity. After hearing Li Psyche's words, she said cautiously, "Thank you, Sister Psyche." She raised her hand and snapped her fingers. The cocky giant, which was dozens of meters tall, was like sand. It drifts away in the wind and disappears in the blink of an eye. Walking behind with Lu Minjiao, looking at Li Psyche's back, Qin Yue felt indescribable shock and admiration in her heart. On the first day she came to the City of Judgment, she saw the user of divine power, witnessed the terror of divine power, and at the same time also inspiring endless fighting spirit. On the city wall, Lin Fan had already seen Li Psyche's return. Seeing that it was getting late, he no longer wanted to take a walk. He turned to look at Zhang Kaiyu and Mu Qingxiu and said calmly, "It's getting late, let's go back." Mu Qingxiu and Zhang Kaiyu naturally had no different opinions. They arrived at the city gate tower and brought their gukins. Lin Fan waved his hand and the space passage opened. Lin Fan took the lead and walked in. Mu Qingxiu had already seen him once, but this was the first time for Zhang Kaiyu. After being surprised, she followed Lin Fan and walked in. In the blink of an eye, she traveled 10 kilometers and returned to the hospital. John Kyu looked at the familiar scenes around her with indescribable amazement. Calling a maid who was passing by, Lin Fan said, "Take Mu Kingxiu back to the dormitory." Mu Kingxiu just arrived today, and Lin Fan didn't want her to get lost for no reason. The second hospital of the Magic City covers a large area. After seeing Mu Kingxiu off, Lin Fan took John Kyu back to the supermarket. On the way, Lin Fan thought about something. Now I have a lot of points, and I haven't taught any new powers recently. This is not good. It doesn't make much sense to keep the points. It's better to redeem a few more new powers. John Kyu and the other three have served him so well. After a long time, Lin Fan was satisfied in all aspects and had reached the standard for granting superpowers. Lin Fan was not stingy with his women, and it was time for John Kyu, Li Yun, and Yu Yiren to embark on the path of becoming stronger. On the second floor of the supermarket, after changing into slippers under Li Yun's service, Lin Fan walked into the living room and happened to see Lin Yu gesturing with her back to her. What surprised and expected Lin Fan was Yerulan's figure. "Maybe this is the secret," Lin Yu said. During the day, Lin Fan had some guesses in his mind. Now that he saw Yerulan, this guess was confirmed. Lin Yu, who had her back turned, did not see Lin Fan come in, but Yerulan, who was facing Lin Fan, could see clearly. Seeing Lin Fan come in, Yerulan shouted in a sweet voice, "My lord, you are back." Hearing Yerulan's words, Lin Yu turned her head and looked at Lin Fan, with a bright smile on her face. Lin Yu turned around, letting Lin Fan see what she was busy with. Lin Fan's eyes lit up when he saw the scene in front of him. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 204. Chapter 204. The combat uniform comes out. It's beautiful, it's so beautiful. Lin Yu turned around, and Lin Fan finally saw what she was gesturing with her back to him. What caught the eye was a black and white combat uniform. When worn on Yerulan, it complemented each other even more, perfectly showing off Yerulan's explosive figure. The combat uniform is all white, with only the collar and arms being black. The combat uniform is one piece. Under the white skirt is a pair of white boots that reach nearly 20 centimeters above the knees. Between the skirt and the skirt, there is only a fair section of her beauty was revealed, and a tang dao hung on the black belt around her waist. From a distance, she looked simply stunning, and she felt a dash of heroism. This is the combat uniform I mentioned before. It's really the same model as Esteth. This combat uniform is very good both in terms of appearance and combat. Seeing the stunning light in Lin Fan's eyes, Yerulan was filled with joy. Being able to be looked at so directly by Lin Fan was enough to prove her charm. Lin Yu also saw the surprise in Lin Fan's eyes. She bent down and picked up the white military cap on the coffee table, then put it on Yerulan's head. Then she pulled Yerulan, who could hardly move, to Lin Fan. "Sir, what do you think? Are you satisfied with this combat uniform? Is it still pleasing to the eye? If it doesn't work, ask the garment department to do it again." Looking Yerulan up and down, Lin Fan couldn't help but praise, "Not bad, very good, very pleasing to the eye, very beautiful. The clothing department has a very high degree of restoration and deserves a commendation. How many of these combat uniforms have been made now?" Hearing Lin Fan's 3 consecutive praises, Lin Yu already understood how satisfied Lin Fan was, and it was not in vain that she had been running to the clothing department these past few days, always paying attention to the progress of the combat uniforms. There are currently several hundred sets of finished products. Because it has not been finalized whether to use this kind of combat uniform, production has not been expanded. Since the master is very satisfied, let them work overtime today, and then take 3 shifts to speed up the battle. Production of uniforms, and allow all female warriors to wear them as soon as possible. Well, just look at the arrangements. Lin Fan nodded. He didn't want to have to deal with this kind of thing. As long as Lin Yuyu is there, he only cares about the final result. After talking about the combat uniform, Lin Yuyu took out a badge from his pocket and turned around and pinned it to Yerulan. On the collar, the two golden stars are so dazzling, marking Yerulan's identity. LV3 Team Leader. This is the badge we designed to represent our identity. Lord, take a look at it now, what do you think? After fastening the badge, Lin Yuyu walked to Lin Fan, took Lin Fan's arm, and asked with a smile. Lin Fan nodded. Regarding the badge, he didn't have much to say, mainly because the combat uniform was so amazing. Wearing it on Yerulan, the charm index directly increased by several points. He is now looking forward to how all the female warriors will look when they put on combat uniforms and line up neatly. Very good, you can see that a lot of care was taken. After praising him without hesitation, Lin Fan looked away, walked to the sofa in the living room and sat down. Not long after Lin Fan sat down, Li Saiki and others also rushed back one after another. Seeing Yerulan's dress in the living room, they were all curious. Looking at it, there was a look of amazement in her eyes. Li Saiki danced the most and rushed directly to Lin Yuyu, shook Lin Yuyu's arm, and said coquettishly, "Sister, it's mine." "What about mine? Do you have mine?" Suzialuo also trotted up to Lin Yuyu, staring straight at Lin Yuyu with his big eyes. He looked like he was about to start shaking his hands with Li Saiki. Stop shaking it, if you shake it any more, people will fall apart." Slapping Li Saiki's hand away, Lin Yuyu said with a headache, yes, don't look at me, they are all there, Rulan, go and take out all the combat uniforms of Luoluo and the others. Yerulan responded, walked quickly to the third floor, and soon walked down with several sets of combat uniforms. Li Saiki threw Lin Yuyu away and rushed over with gleaming eyes. "Give it to me, give it to me." Yerulan ran back and forth twice before taking down all the combat uniforms of Li Saiki, Zhao Yanyan, and others. Soon the atmosphere in the living room was not right. Seeing Li Saiki start to take off her clothes in the living room, Lin Fan deliberately wanted to stop it. But when he looked again, Zhao Yanyan and Mu Yuking started to take off their coats, and Lin Fan didn't know whether he should speak or not. Just when he hesitated, Li Saiki and others had already taken off their coats and everything. All Lin Fan could think about was the words white and big. He watched the women changing clothes with relish. They were both fat and thin, each with their own merits. It wasn't until they put on their combat uniforms that Lin Fan sighed with unfinished content, but soon I cheered up. Li Saiki, Suzialuo, Mu Yuking, and Zhao Yanyan all put on combat uniforms. Together with Yerulan next to them, it was a beautiful sight. Only Zhao Wanqing and Lin Yuyu were the eldest sisters. The second sister was more stable and changed her clothes without going to the living room. However, just the five of them, Li Saiki and the others, were enough to dazzle Lin Fan. This combat uniform was really great, especially when worn on Li Saiki and the others, it made the combat uniform even more beautiful. The beauty of the clothes was completely highlighted, and it was simply beautiful. The only feeling was that something was missing. After looking around, Lin Fan saw the Tang Dao on Yerulan's waist, and Lin Fan suddenly understood that something was missing. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. 4 tang knives appeared on the coffee table. Lin Fan said, "Put the tang knives on your belt." After hearing this, the 4 girls Zhao Yanyan picked up the tang knives on the coffee table and put them on their waists. Lin Fan looked at them and nodded with satisfaction. Good. Really not bad. Simply beautiful. After receiving Lin Fan's praise, Suzialuo smiled, and like a happy little rabbit, she ran directly into Lin Fan's arms. Her 2 white and tender little ones spread out, sat on Lin Fan's big thigh, and held her in her arms. Lin Fan's neck was filled with kisses. He was just waiting to catch a little Lolita, especially since this little Lolita dared to be so presumptuous. Lin Fan would naturally not let her run rampant for too long. Suzyologo almost lost his temper when he kissed Suzyologo back. Lying in Lin Fan's arms, feeling an uncomfortable pain in his buttocks, and the back of his head being suppressed by two mountains, Suzyologo wrinkled his little face and said angrily, "You know how to bully me." After kissing each other, Yerulan secretly lined up at the back and made enough money. Looking at Yerulan sitting next to him, who successfully stole the chicken and giggled, Lin Fan shook his head in a funny way, hugging the soft Suzyologo, slumped on the sofa, enjoying the rare piece. Closing his eyes, Lin Fan's consciousness sank and he opened his personal attributes. Character, Lin Fan. Strength, 355. Agility, 351. Intelligence, 381. Physique, 390. Points, 32,110. Ability, Magnetic Field Control LV7, Lightning Control LV7, Wood Element Control LV7, Earth Element Control LV7, Demon Cat LV7, Space Power LV7. Experience, 67891/10W, 56207/10W, 43122/10W, 58500/10W, 40209/10W, 59541/100W. Items owned, Flying Knife *100. Unknowingly, the points directly jump to 300,000. If you don't know it, Lin Fan took a look and was shocked. This is so damn fast. Once there are more people, the speed at which points are accumulated is simply outrageous. Especially those who are big players in earning points like Zhao Wanqing. At this time, Zhao Wanqing and the others are basically already at LV7. That means Suzyologo obtained the superpower relatively late. Besides reaching LV7, all the women's superpower levels are already at LV7. With LV7 powers, Zhao Wanqing and the others can be called mobile natural disasters. With full firepower, they can evaporate everything within a few kilometers in an instant. It is not a big problem at all, but it consumes more energy. Such large-scale destruction can only be done a few times. That's right. If we didn't want to destroy the Magic City too badly and leave only ruins in the end, it is estimated that the speed of clearing zombies would be increased 10 times. Another reason is that the female warriors under his command can also get some improvements. With up to 300,000 points, Lin Fan was thinking about what kind of power he should exchange for. Zhang Kaiyu, Yu Yi, and Li Yun can all teach powers. Now they have space powers, which occupies a position. In other words, two new powers need to be exchanged. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now that we have wood, fire, and earth, we still need metal and water. For Zhang Kaiyu, the metal property should be good. Yu Yiren's gentle personality is suitable for water. Li Yun, the eldest sister among the three girls, has the power of space. Space, although the superpowers are powerful, the upgrade speed is really slow, so there are gains and losses. This adds up to 30,000 points, and some watches and tang knives need to be redeemed. Now that the population of Judgment City has surged, the watches and tang knives left before are no longer enough. Having made a decision in his mind, Lin Fan muttered silently, "System, exchange me for metallic abilities and water attributes." Ding. After deducting 20,000 points, congratulations on getting the metallic and water attribute abilities. Can I fuse them now? Fusion. After the words fell, two completely different powers suddenly emerged in the body. The warmth of water and the sharpness of gold, two attributes slowly surged in Lin Fan's body, strengthening Lin Fan's body. However, these two energies are not suitable for the current situation. For Lin Fan, it was too weak. The four-dimensional attribute, which was close to 400 points, could no longer be improved by LV1 level powers. After taking the two energies into his control, Lin Fan continued, system, exchange it for me. 3,000 tang knives and 5,000 watches. Ding. After deducting 80,000 points, the item has been sent to your personal space. There is a reason why he exchanged so many tang knives and watches. Lin Fan plans to popularize watches. Even maids have them. Watches are tied to identities and have many benefits. The most direct one is, will not be attacked by the man-eating tree. The man-eating tree eats people. Lin Fan doesn't want the man-eating tree to eat some unlucky maid one day. With the existence of the watch and Lin Fan's magnetic field on it, the man-eating tree will not attack, and in the future, many orders from high-level officials can also be known to the maids through their watches. For example, only the female warriors knew about Mu Kingxiu's status improvement issue before, and the maids also happened to see some, but many of them were completely unclear. The transmission of information is also crucial for a force. There is no harm in redeeming Tang Dao for more points. It saves him the trouble of exchanging it again and again. Just thinking in Lin Fan's mind, he still needs to buy it. While ordering something, Suzyaloto suddenly moved in his arms. Lin Fan frowned and slowly opened his eyes. Luoloto, what are you doing? Before he finished speaking, Lin Fan felt something was wrong in front of him, but Lin Fan didn't realize what was wrong for a while. Until Lin Fan raised his head and looked at the roof, he finally understood what was wrong. For a moment, Lin Fan's face sank. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 205. Chapter 205. The power station exploded, and Lin Fan got himself into a trap. With Lin Fan's current strength, day and night had no effect on him. Even a dark night was like daylight in Lin Fan's eyes. Just opening his eyes, Lin Fan didn't feel anything was wrong, but Lin Yuyu and the others' expressions were a little solemn, and Lin Fan didn't have time to react until he raised his head and looked towards the roof. The crystal lamp in the living room on the second floor was extinguished. If it was normal, if Lin Fan looked up, he could see the crystal lamp emitting a faint white light, but now the light has disappeared. The pupils fluctuated a few times. Just as Lin Fan had thought, the living room instantly became dark. Lin Fan would not think that it was Lin Yuyu and the others who turned off the lights on purpose. Since it was not Lin Yuyu and the others, there was only one answer. Power cut? Today, more than a month after the Doomsday, the power finally went out. In the darkness, everything seemed so dead, and everything around him became clear. In Lin Fan's arms, Suzyaloto raised his head aggrievedly, looked at Lin Fan with big eyes, and whispered, "Brother, did Loto disturb you just now?" The women in the family had a default rule. Lin Fan closed his eyes when their eyes are thinking. Everyone will consciously lower their voices and move slowly, so as not to disturb Lin Fan's thinking. But the power outage came too suddenly. Suzyaloto was startled by the suddenly dark environment and almost jumped up. That was how Lin Fan was disturbed. Suzyaloto, whose power level is already level 6, has night vision ability, but it is just like turning on and off the light suddenly. It will still startle him suddenly. This was the case with Suzyaloto just now, even though his eyes were already closed. He reacted and automatically adapted to the darkness, but the person was still startled. Lin Fan looked down at Suzyaloto with a sullen face. The usually precious little loli was about to burst into tears. Lin Fan lowered his head and blocked her pussy, almost squeezing her into his body before letting go. Patting Suzyaloto's elastic little butt, Lin Fan comforted him and said, "Don't be sad. My little cutie is so sweet. Why would it bother me?" However, there is indeed something wrong with this sudden power outage. He raised his head and looked. Looking at Lin Yuyu and the other girls with solemn expressions, Lin Fan asked, "What do you think?" Boom. Before Lin Yuyu and the girls could say anything, a terrifying explosion suddenly came from the distance, and the dazzling firelight was so dazzling in this dead and dark night. Standing up with Suzialuo in his arms, Lin Fan came to the balcony on the second floor, looked in the direction illuminated by the fire, and asked, "Where is that over there?" Zhao Wanqing and Lin Yuyu came over, and Zhao Wanqing took the "I was holding my cell phone." The signal on the cell phone was very poor, but it was still working. Looking at the situation on the map on her mobile phone, Zhao Wanqing compared it with a serious expression. "I just checked and found that the power supply facility in our hospital comes from the Qinbei power station, which uses thermal power. The direction of the explosion is directly north of us. If nothing else, the explosion should have occurred at the Qinbei power station." The power station exploded. The hearts of the women present sank, and Lin Fan's face also looked a little ugly. What does the explosion of the power station mean? This means that starting from today, their side will enter a period of complete darkness at night. Now, unlike before the Doomsday, no one repaired the power station explosion. Are there other power stations that can provide power to us? After a moment of silence, Lin Fan asked. Zhao Wanqing tucked the hair behind her ears, swiped the phone screen up and down, shook her head and said, "There are only 2 power stations in our area, and one is the Changsha that just exploded. North Power Station, the other one is Huayang Power Station 25 kilometers north, but Huayang Power Station exploded on the 6th day after the end. The closest one to us is the Wanghai Power Station in Yangpu District, which is 39 kilometers away. This is too far. If we want to transmit power to our side, we need to change the line. Does anyone here know about this? And most importantly, it is unclear whether the Wanghai power station is operating normally." Listening to Zhao Wanqing's report, Lin Fan was not in a good mood. No electricity at night is too fatal. What does the dark night represent? The dark night represents danger. From ancient times to the present, the dark night has been synonymous with danger and the unknown, so with the bonfire, from the oil lamps in the back to the current electric lamps. This was before the apocalypse. Today, after the apocalypse, once the power goes out, it means that the night will be more dangerous. Putting down Suzialuo in his arms, Lin Fan turned around and asked, "Qinbei a power station, right? A power station that has been running well for more than a month after the end of the world must be maintained by someone. I'm going to have a look now. Wanqing, you go and see if you can supply power to the hospital first. I'll go to the Qinbei power station to have a look." Lin Fan didn't mean anything else. He wanted to see if there were any survivors at the Qinbei power station. As he said, a power station that is still running well after more than a month after the end must have someone. Maintenance. It is unclear whether the hospital has talents in this field. There is a high probability that there are not. If not, talents in this field are very important. If there is a surviving woman over there, Lin Fan would not mind taking her with him. Come back, as long as the other party is not dead, then it will be difficult to die. Although it is crazy to say this, the energy of the wood element is so strong. With the support of massive wood element energy, even if a big hole is stabbed in the heart, as long as there is still with a breath, Lin Fan can be saved. If it's the head, forget it, this is really hopeless. Hearing Lin Fan's instructions, Zhao Wanqing nodded. She has the power of lightning. As long as she controls the energy output, human power can be generated, not difficult. My lord, please be careful. Qinbei Power Station is not far from the Magic City Sports Center. Lin Fan almost fell off the balcony just as he was about to leave. Now Lin Fan understands why a well-functioning power station suddenly exploded. If it is not far from the Magic City Stadium, it is probably because he lost a timer today. The bomb was accidentally affected. After some rescue, it was not rescued in the end. The line completely collapsed and then exploded. Lin Fan did not expect that a time bomb could trap him. He shook off the thoughts in his mind. Lin Fan's figure flashed and got into the space door. Above the Olin Hotel, Lin Fan's figure appeared out of thin air. He lowered his head and looked down. The area where the Olin Hotel is now has become a nearly 10 meters deep and over 1,000 meters. There was a large crater in a radius, with the Olin Hotel as the center. The terrifying shockwave swept across several kilometers. The surrounding buildings were either flattened or riddled with holes by the shockwave. In short, it was extremely miserable. The closest one was the Magic City Stadium. Half of them were destroyed by the blast. An explosion just happened here in the afternoon. In the evening, the Chinbei Power Station 1 kilometer north exploded immediately. Lin Fan stood in the air and could see the exploding fireballs flying around. The center of the explosion, the flames rose nearly 100 meters high, and the billowing smoke kept rushing into the sky. There were even chain explosions from time to time in the power station. Now Lin Fan was sure that the Chinbei Power Station was related to the time bomb he had that afternoon. The distance was so close, the shock wave was the first to bear the brunt. Looking down now, you can see the walls riddled with gravel and steel fragments around Chinbei Power Station. Without too much hesitation, Lin Fan flew to Chinbei Power Station, where the explosion was still happening. Inside the North Power Station, all the shock waves, debris, and smoke from the explosion were blocked 3 meters away when they approached Lin Fan. Lin Fan's mind spread and he sensed the survivors in the Chinbei Power Station, but the explosion it was too violent, and the electric light flowed, which greatly affected Lin Fan's perception. Frowning at the electric current flowing around and the exploding flames, Lin Fan raised his arm and pressed his palm down. In an instant, the flames that were still burning seemed to be in the air. It was like playing it upside down, rushing back from high altitude towards the power station, and was finally compressed into a concentrated flame. As for the flowing current, it was directly sucked into the center of Lin Fan's palm. He casually drew a crack in the space, and the remaining electric current and fireball were thrown into the space crack, and Lin Fan spread his thoughts out again. I don't know if the Chinbei Power Station exploded too violently, but Lin Fan didn't sense the existence of living people for a while, and his figure stepped step by step after leaving. He saw burnt corpses at his feet from time to time. As his perception continued to spread, Lin Fan soon found the first living person. Looking down at the burned body, half of it was a little burnt, and he was already dying. Lin Fan shook his head, passed the man, and continued to walk inside. Along the way, most of the things Lin Fan saw were the corpses of men, or men who were bombed with only one breath left. There were very few female corpses. I just didn't know what the environment was like inside this power station before the explosion. Men were dominant? Then women were reduced to tools? Lin Fan couldn't figure it out. Even he didn't know. More than a month after the end of the world, how does the power station maintain power generation? Chinbei Power Station is a thermal power station, which generally uses coal as fuel. It is impossible for Chinbei Power Station to store coal for more than a month. Regardless of any foresight, Chinbei Power Station cannot accommodate the space occupied by so much coal. While thinking, Lin Fan walked a long distance and finally found the first woman who was not killed by the bomb but was still alive. However, this woman was not far from death. The woman's injuries were very serious, and her face was covered with black ash. It was obviously affected by the explosion, but this was not the source of the woman's death. On the woman's left ribs, below the heart not far away, a steel pipe as thick as a thumb penetrated her body, pinning her firmly to the ground. There was a lot of blood on the ground. Judging from the traces around it, the woman must have struggled violently. However, the force of the steel pipe was too strong and the woman could not pull it out at all. The steel pipe was too long, more than 1 meter, about 50 degrees, at this angle. Due to the length of the steel pipe, even if a woman stands up despite the pain, it is impossible for the steel pipe to break away from her body. Fortunately, the woman is not dead yet. As long as she is not dead, Lin Fan can save her. Looking at the steel pipe in front of him, Lin Fan took it casually and pulled it out easily. Poof! The steel pipe left the body and brought out a handful of blood. The woman groaned in pain, and her closed eyes opened under the painful stimulation. Looking down at the steel pipe in his hand, Lin Fan twitched his horn. No wonder the woman couldn't pull it out. It was inserted a foot deep into the ground. Even a healthy man couldn't pull it out, let alone the seriously injured woman in front of him. Throwing away the steel pipe in his hand, Lin Fan squatted down, picked up the woman, and tore off the clothes on her wound. This was not because Lin Fan wanted to take advantage. He didn't tear off the clothes and clean up the dirt in the wound. Under the elemental energy, those things are fully grown in the body. This is not saving people, this is killing people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 206. Chapter 206. Want to pledge yourself to me? Sorry, no need. Cao Shan was a maintenance worker at Jinbei power plant before the apocalypse. Her job was not heavy, but very easy. She only needed to check the equipment on time every day, and then go to work normally. Cao Shan was quite satisfied with this job. The salary was good and the working hours were not long. The key was that it was relaxing. She originally thought she would be working in a power plant for the rest of her life, but the end came. There were not many people at the power plant, and I don't know if it was luck, but not many people turned into zombies. Under the leadership of some courageous electricians, the few zombies were quickly cleaned up. At the same time, the power plant door is also completely closed. Jinbei power plant has its own canteen, dormitories, and even a supermarket inside the power plant. There is a large shopping mall less than 200 meters away from Jinbei power plant. On the day of the Doomsday outbreak, Jinbei power station happened to unload a batch of coal, which was enough to burn several units of Jinbei power station for more than half a month. With enough food and a safe enough environment, Cao Shan and a group of surviving staff living in a power station, waiting for rescue, the power supply has not been cut off. As the Doomsday passed day by day, the expected rescue did not come. Coal burned less and less, and many workers became more and more resentful. As a last resort, many units were shut down, and most of the power supply lines were also cut off. In this way, coal consumption is reduced. For more than a month, there were several minor conflicts in the power plant. Some men could not stand the depressing life of the apocalypse and wanted to do something to the female workers, but they were quickly suppressed. Women who have mobile phones and often surf the internet are very defensive about this. The most serious incident was when a male worker wanted to commit violence at night, but the woman took out a knife and killed him. The final result was nothing. After that wake-up call, all the men became more sober, and chose the small life between women and their lives. Not everyone has the courage to gamble with their lives, especially after seeing helicopters from the military region flying through the sky several times. They were afraid that the army would come in to rescue survivors. The workers became much more honest. After all, no one I know whether the army will settle the score later. But after waiting and waiting, the military rescue did not come, but a big explosion came first. The source of the explosion was the Olin Hotel, 1 kilometer away. The explosion was so violent that the shockwave carried various debris and swept across the Jinbei power station in an instant. Those fragments like cannonballs left the Jinbei power station riddled with holes. If most of the generating units had not been shut down a long time ago, Jinbei power station might have exploded in the afternoon. Despite this, the situation at Jinbei power station is still not optimistic. The two generating units that were still running were seriously damaged, and some mechanical equipment began to leak electricity. No one wanted to die, and no one dared to leave Chinbei Power Station. There were too many zombies outside. Too many, no one thinks they can survive being eaten by so many zombies. As a maintenance worker, Cao Shan has never been so busy. She kept running around, repairing here and fixing that. She was not the only one who was busy. All the maintenance staff were extremely busy, and they were busy from afternoon to at night. Tragedy finally happened. The explosion was too close, and too many areas of the Chinbei Power Station were damaged. There was no way to save the day. Realizing that it was irreversible, Cao Shan originally planned to run away, but the explosion came too suddenly. It was not her side, but it's another generator set. The air waves from the series of explosions blew her away. Before she could get up, a steel pipe penetrated her body and pinned her to the ground. Cao Shan fainted from the pain and was hit again. She woke up from the pain and tried to pull out the steel pipe without wanting to die, but her strength was too weak and she was still seriously injured. The steel pipe seemed to have grown on the ground. She couldn't stand up and couldn't pull out the steel pipe. People ran over to her from time to time, but no one stopped in response to her calls for help. Cao Shan was desperate. She lost a lot of blood in her body, making her consciousness a little blurry. She even lost a lot of blood. She could feel that her body temperature was dropping rapidly, and her heart beating frequency was also constantly decreasing. Cao Shan realized that she was going to die. Her vision was blurry and dark, and Cao Shan's consciousness was almost blurred. At this moment, she seemed to feel someone walking around her, but she was too tired and couldn't open her eyelids, and she didn't want to open them anyway. Even if someone is there, they won't save her, so why waste their efforts? Just when she was about to wait quietly for death, a sharp pain suddenly came from the wound, as if her intestines were being pulled out. The severe pain made her open her eyes instantly, and her heart almost stopped beating. Stimulated by the sharp pain, it began to beat rapidly, and then she saw it. She saw a man with a calm face standing next to her, holding a steel pipe in his hand. The man's eyes seemed to be filled with surprise. Cao Shan was also surprised. The steel pipe was inserted so deep. Why did this man have such a steel pipe? Just pulled out your hand? Before she could figure it out, the man in front of her knelt down, picked her up, and then he started to tear her clothes off. Cao Shan smiled bitterly in her heart. How could the man in front of her still be thinking about this at this time? Can't you think about how to save her first? What is the difference between this and killing the chicken to retrieve the eggs? What's so good about a quick picture? Don't you know what slow water means? This man is so handsome, and it's not like she can't agree to save her life. Why is he so blind? Cao Shan doesn't want to give it away for the first time here. In her current state, if she does it once, she will really die. No, don't want, first, save me first, I can, be your daughter, girlfriend. Listening to the intermittent voice of the woman in his arms, Lin Fan had a question mark on his forehead. How could this woman be so beautiful? He saved her life, but he also had to involve himself. Promise yourself? What are you thinking about? I have everything in my dream. Where can I stay cool? What I want is your skills, but you actually covet my body. Simply obscene. Ignoring the woman's request, Lin Fan tore off all the clothes near the wound, inspected it carefully, placed his palm on the wound, felt it, and used energy to guide out all the sand, dirt, and paint rust inside. Leaning in Lin Fan's arms, Cao Shan could feel Lin Fan's hand moving under her heart, but the wound was too painful. She didn't know if Lin Fan was playing with the big pig she had raised for more than 20 years. He was so angry that he said with difficulty, I'm serious, I can be your woman, but you don't want it, not now, I will die. Seeing the woman raise her hand to grab his hand, but she didn't catch it, and instead added a few grains of sand to the wound. Lin Fan's face suddenly darkened. Can you stop talking? Who wants you to commit yourself? It's like I'm in need of a woman. I'm treating your injuries, but you're plotting against me? Can you stay here for a while? I don't need you to commit yourself, I just need you to stay quietly for 5 minutes, thank you. You don't need to pledge yourself to me, thanks. I don't need your commitment, thanks. I don't need your commitment, thanks. Like a demonic voice piercing her ears, Lin Fan's words kept echoing in Cao Shan's ears. Cao Shan was dumbfounded. Looking at Lin Fan's serious face with lowered head, if she hadn't been unable to move, she would have jumped up and bit this man to death. Are you a straight man who rides a horse? You will never have a girlfriend like this in your life. Cao Shan was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She simply closed her eyes out of sight and out of mind. She felt humiliated and she would rather just tilt her neck and die. It's so irritating and insulting. Is there anyone who talks like that? Do you know how much damage this will do to her soul? Hiss. Veins popped out on Cao Shan's forehead, and she kept sucking in cold air. Her closed eyes opened instantly, staring at Lin Fan. Are you cutting my flesh? It hurts. It hurts so much. It was like being cut into pieces by 1,000 cuts. Almost instantly, she broke out in a cold sweat, and her back was also covered in cold sweat. Lin Fan glanced at Cao Shan and ignored her. He repaired the wound. There was nothing wrong with it. Does it hurt? After the severe pain at the beginning, it got much better afterwards. Cao Shan breathed a sigh of relief. She could feel that her weak body seemed to be much better. She had difficulty raising her head before, but now she felt much better, as if she had lost a lot of blood. The weakness caused by it was like a dream. If it weren't for the dull pain in her ribs, she would have thought she was dreaming. Looking up at the wound, Cao Shan was slightly startled. From her perspective, she saw that the flesh and blood at the wound was squirming and growing rapidly under the green light, and the green light was emanating from the hands of the man in front of her. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief, and Cao Shan thought she had appeared. She was hallucinating, but in fact, she found that this was not a hallucination. The man in front of her was actually healing her. And he was using this magical ability. What are you doing? Internal strength? True Yuan? Chakra? Guess. Magic. The effect is great, but it hurts too much at the beginning. What do you do? I remember seeing someone with superpowers appear before, like a god of thunder. Who are you? Do you have any other abilities? Or is your ability just to save people? How did you obtain this ability? Did it happen naturally? Or is there some kind of system? Or are you a born-again person? A barrage of questions came from his ears, and Lin Fan's eyelids twitched. Good guy, it's true that people can't be judged by their appearance, and sea water can't be measured. This girl knows too much. Ning just understands the king? A professional term. How dare you think of a set of things like chakra, internal power, true essence, golden fingers, system rebirth, etc. Although this seems to be the case. The arm holding Cao Shan moved up, and the palms of the hands were pressed hard after grabbing a handful. Cao Shan, who was originally looking excited and curious, whined instantly and curled up together. Lifting up her somewhat pale face, Cao Shan glared at Lin Fan with a glimmer of water in her eyes. Didn't you mean not interested in me? What? What I mean is that you should be quiet and stop making trouble for me. I can save you or kill you. You have no right to ask questions here. If I am unhappy, you will die. Do you understand? Looking at Cao Shan coldly, Lin Fan's tone startled Cao Shan. A basin of cold water was poured into her pocket. The dizziness on Cao Shan's face disappeared, and her face turned a little pale. The look in Lin Fan's eyes just now told her that he was not. If she was happy, she would really die. That look was like looking at a dead person. Although she didn't know what it looked like to look at a dead person, her reason told her that Lin Fan looked at a dead person. Cao Shan, she felt unspeakable grievance in her heart. After all, she was just a flower in the power plant. People chasing her could line up from the dormitory to the gate of the power plant. This was the first time they met. She didn't even bother to touch her, and just pressed them directly against the cold steel plate. In fact, Cao Shan didn't know how embarrassed she was now. Half of her face was blackened by black smoke, her hair was disheveled, and she was worse than a beggar. She just wanted to say that she would give her life, but Lin Fan didn't slap her back. Even if he slaps her to death, she should be grateful that Lin Fan has a good temper. No, she should be grateful that Lin Fan discovered her first and was too lazy to bother looking for another woman for the time being, otherwise she would have really lost her temper. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 207. Chapter 207. Is this a girl's dormitory or a pansy cave? Without Cao Shan's interruption, Lin Fan concentrated on healing her injuries. The vitality contained in the wood elemental energy quickly repaired the previously terrifying penetrating wounds, leaving not even a trace of scars. The injury is healed. Get up now. I have something to ask you. When Cao Shan heard this, she didn't know if she was frightened by Lin Fan just now or for other reasons. She got up very quickly and in a hurry. Standing next to her nervously, Cao Shan lowered her head, like a primary school student who made a mistake. She patted her clothes. Lin Fan straightened up, looked at the woman in front of him who bowed her head and said nothing, and asked, "What do you do in the power plant? Do you know where the other women in your power plant are?" Lowering her head, Cao Shan felt uneasy. She didn't know where to put her hands hanging by her side. She was really frightened by Lin Fan's eyes just now. My job at the power plant is to repair and maintain equipment. Before the explosion, I was repairing damaged lines and equipment at Unit 2. As a result, an explosion occurred at Unit 1, and I was killed before I could even run away. A steel pipe is nailed to the ground. Most of the other people in the power plant should be in the dormitory, and the rest, a small number of them, should be like me, all on the power generation unit of the power plant. The explosion was so terrifying, it is unclear whether they survived. Glancing at Cao Shan, Lin Fan didn't expect that such a shady woman who was bombed worse than a beggar on the street was actually a person in charge of repairing and maintaining equipment. She was a serious technical worker. They are much more useful than ordinary power station staff. To put it simply, it's like driving. Just because you can drive it doesn't mean you can repair it, but it's different for car mechanics. Not only can they repair, but they also have excellent driving skills. Knowing that Cao Shan was a skilled worker, Lin Fan's tone slowed down significantly. From now on, the power problems in the Judgment City will all depend on the woman in front of him. Chenbei Power Station is scrapped, and there are no suitable power plants around that can supply power. Lin Fan plans to exchange some power generation equipment directly in the system to be self-sufficient, but the equipment is equipment. Once it is redeemed, do you know which wire is connected to where? The equipment alone will not connect to the power. No matter how many equipment you have, they are just decorations. Zhao Wanqing can't just do nothing and work as a battery at home every day, right? Through Cao Shan's words, Lin Fan also learned some things about Chenbei Power Station. This refers to the female staff, some of whom are in the dormitory, and some of whom are scattered in the power plant. It is estimated that like Cao Shan, they were all repairing damaged equipment. Now that the generator set exploded, they should all be seriously injured or died on the spot. Lin Fan thought for a moment and ordered to Cao Shan take me their first female workers' dormitory. Cao Shan was stunned for a moment, nodded, turned and walked towards the passage on the left. Following Cao Shan, Lin Fan felt that the speed was too slow, so he stepped forward and hugged Cao Shan's waist. This time Cao Shan didn't think too much. She didn't even dare to say anything. She just let the 100 pounds go and let Lin Fan do whatever he wanted. Cao Shan was really scared. Facing Lin Fan, she had no power to resist, so she simply let Lin Fan do it. Fan can do whatever he wants, this is also the best protection for himself. Holding Cao Shan's waist, Lin Fan hugged her and came to the outside of the building. You are too slow. Please show me the way, woman. Where are the staff dormitories? Cao Shan raised her head and looked at the scene in front of her blankly. She didn't realize why she suddenly appeared outside. After the power outage, the city became even darker under the night. Cao Shan tried hard to distinguish it and pointed to the north. Said the female staff dormitory is over there. Lin Fan glanced at the direction Cao Shan was pointing, hugged her and flew straight up. The two of them headed straight to the north, flying thousands of meters away. Without even using Cao Shan to point the way, Lin Fan saw the female employee dormitory. The power station explosion had a great impact. Fortunately, only 2 units were operating. If they were all operating normally, the power of the explosion would be enough to level the entire Chinbei power station. However, even so, employees thousands of meters away, the damage to the dormitory was also quite serious. On the side facing the explosion, the shock wave collapsed the walls. At this time, under Lin Fan's gaze, women were huddled with flashlights in their hands or the flashlights on their mobile phones. Inside each room, humans are visual creatures with an instinctive fear of darkness, so in the darkness, these women instinctively turned on the only light source, looking for that little bit of security. There was a building a few hundred meters away. The building, over there, should be the dormitory for male workers. Lin Fan could hear the shouts coming from far away, and the light of various flashlights kept flashing. Ignoring these men, Lin Fan hugged Cao Shan, flew directly to the downstairs of the girls' dormitory. Where is the electric switch in your girls' dormitory? Cao Shan thought for a moment and said, it's just under the stairs on the first floor. Nodding his head clearly, Lin Fan let go of Cao Shan and walked into the dormitory building in a few steps. He quickly found the location of the electric switch. Lightning flashed from his fingertips. Under Lin Fan's control, the current flowed instantly along the electric switch. Throughout the girls' dormitory, the lights that had been extinguished due to the loss of power supply suddenly turned on. After doing all this, Lin Fan found a rather difficult thing. He had to stand here and control the current output, otherwise the power had just been restored. There will be another power outage in the girls' dormitory building soon. You go notify the women upstairs and ask them all to come down quickly, do you understand? Cao Shan, who was standing not far away in a daze, was woken up. She didn't dare to ask any more questions and ran upstairs quickly. Everything that happened today was so overwhelming that she didn't even have a scar on her ribs. Moreover, all the broken bones have grown back. Now she doesn't feel weak at all. She is in great spirits. This healing ability is simply outrageous. If the hospital had this kind of medical technology before the end of the world would not know how to do it. How many fewer people would die? She originally thought that Lin Fan's ability was probably healing, but she suddenly discovered that Lin Fan could also discharge electricity. Cao Shan was a little doubtful whether Lin Fan was the thunder god in the video. After all, there was no conflict. Right? Who said someone who can discharge electricity can't heal injuries? Realizing this, Cao Shan didn't dare to talk nonsense anymore. Now she probably understood Lin Fan's previous thoughts and feelings. There should be no shortage of women for such people. With such terrifying strength, how many women do you want? As for why all the female employees were called down, she didn't know. She couldn't guess what Lin Fan was thinking. On the second floor, Cao Shan knocked on the door one by one. The inexplicable call dispelled the fear in the hearts of the women. When they were at a loss, they suddenly heard a knock on the door, and they all ran out. Seeing the pitch-black Cao Shan, they couldn't recognize who it was at all. If it weren't for the mirror, she was holding it herself. Cao Shan couldn't believe that the person in the mirror who was almost turned into black coal by the smoke was her. In order to complete what Lin Fan told her, Cao Shan used her quick wits. Anyway, in one sentence, Thor downstairs, let everyone go downstairs. This sentence worked better than anything else. The women didn't bother to ask why. They ran swarm downstairs. Cao Shan grabbed a few women and asked them to notify the people upstairs one by one. Women, she herself took advantage of this moment to wash up. If she didn't wash up, she would be embarrassed to see others. In the bathroom, while cleaning the dust on her body, Cao Shan wanted to bang her head against the wall. Seeing her now, she probably understood why Lin Fan was so disgusted with her. It was probably because Ruhua said she would commit herself to you in your arms, and acted like you were taking advantage of her. She was lucky not to be humanely destroyed by a slap. Quickly washing off all the black dust on her body, Cao Shan picked up the dirty clothes and put them on her body. She had no time to change clothes. She had already spent 10 minutes cleaning them, so she went back to her room upstairs to change clothes. She was afraid that she would be destroyed by Lin Fan later when she went downstairs. On the first floor of the female staff dormitory, Lin Fan was a little surprised when he heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs. He originally thought he would have to wait for a while, but he didn't expect it. Cao Shan, he moved so quickly, and within 5 minutes of going up there was so much movement. Some people thought that there was an earthquake and were preparing to flee. This situation made Lin Fan a little confused. What did Cao Shan do to make these women so happy? Just go downstairs. The doubt was short-lived. As the screams of the women came, Lin Fan understood instantly. What about Thor? Thor, where are you? Thor, where are you? Are you here to save us? Where are people? Where's the Thunder God? Could it be that he left? Didn't it say that Thor is on the first floor? Where have people gone? MMP, could it be that Cao Shan lied to us? Depend on. Bai is so excited. Where is Cao Shan? I'm going to rip her head off. What a waste of my expression. Stop talking, I'm going to blow Cao Shan's head right now. My sister was scared to death today. She still dares to deceive me about my feelings. If I don't beat the shit out of her, I'll write my name upside down. The eyes of the women who ran downstairs were like radars. They looked around and found no one. They were all very angry. Lin Fan is now doubting life at the bottom of the stairs. Co-author Cao Shan is, did he use his name to fool these women? Seeing that a group of women were about to go upstairs, Lin Fan took a few steps back, stood outside the stairs, and said to the door, don't you guys go up, I let Cao Shan called you down. Probably her name is Cao Shan, right? Lin Fan hasn't asked Cao Shan's name yet. He heard the women shouting and guessed it. Lin Fan suddenly stood up, and all the aggressive women froze in place. Hundreds of eyes looked at Lin Fan, and finally stopped on the electric current that kept flowing out of Lin Fan's hand. Their eyes lit up instantly, and they all rushed towards Lin Fan. I also asked why the dormitory suddenly had electricity. The power plant and workshop were obviously blown up, but it turned out that Thor was generating electricity for us. Thor turns out to be like this. The video in front of me is too blurry, and I can only see the shadow. The God of Thunder is really here. I thought Cao Shan was deceiving me. Since Cao Shan is not lying, just spare her life. Looking at it from a close distance, the god of thunder is so handsome. The one in front, let me take a look. Stop squeezing so much, whoever touches my butt, NMD doesn't do it himself. Looking at the noisy women in front of him, Lin Fan had black lines all over his head. Why are these women looking so wrong? Is this a female employee dormitory or a pansy cave? Why are these women looking like they want to eat him? Not to mention, the women in this power station are tall, they are all so beautiful. Could it be that there is a beauty requirement when applying for an electrician job? So here comes the question, how did Cao Shan get in? Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 208. Chapter 208, What's mine can't escape. What's not mine must be snatched away. Deng deng deng. A series of footsteps came down the stairs. Cao Shan ran very fast and hurriedly. When she came to the corner of the stairs, she looked at the densely packed women who were standing on tiptoes and looking around. Cao Shan subconsciously looked at the bottom of the stairs. She has probably guessed that the women are not all stuck here for no reason. The only possibility is that they are looking at Lin Fan, the Thor god she made. In fact, is Lin Fan actually the Thor god? Cao Shan not sure, but it doesn't matter, as long as all these women get down. As for the rest, she didn't need to think about it. Cao Shan lowered her head and looked down the stairs. Lin Fan heard the sound and subconsciously looked above his head. Their eyes met. Cao Shan instantly felt as if he had been pricked by a needle and quickly turned his head away. At the bottom of the stairs, Lin Fan was a little dazed. He felt that the woman upstairs seemed familiar in some way. If he didn't look at her face, the clothes seemed to belong to the Cao Shan from before. Have all the women come down? On the stairs, Cao Shan heard this and subconsciously replied without thinking they should all be down, I asked them to notify each floor. Hearing Cao Shan's answer, Lin Fan was already sure that the person standing on the stairs was the He Buliu from before, who had even dreamed of committing herself to him. Lin Fan really didn't expect that his face was washed clean and his hair was combed. After a while, after not being in a chicken coop situation, Cao Shan turned out to be so beautiful. In fact, she didn't sneak in, she just relied on her true ability. This thought flashed through Lin Fan's mind, and he did not agree to Cao Shan's future. Lin Fan didn't feel too sorry for the promise. He couldn't run away anyway. Sooner or later, if he couldn't run away, it would be his. If it wasn't his, it would eventually become his. Now that everyone was down, Lin Fan simply stopping the supply of lightning energy. Almost at the moment Lin Fan stopped, the lights in the entire building flickered a few times and soon went out. This power outage did not cause any trouble, probably because all the women present knew about it. The electricity in the dormitory building was supplied by Lin Fan. Now that Lin Fan has stopped the power supply, the power outage is also a normal phenomenon. Spreading his left hand, the lightning condensed into a ball, and the flowing electric light illuminated the surrounding scene. He looked at the women in front of him. Lin Fan asked, "You should all have flashlights or mobile phones, right?" The women answered in a noisy manner. Many women even turned on the flashlights they had not put down. In an instant, the entire first floor was illuminated by hundreds of flashlights. Even those who did not have flashlights took out their mobile phones. Then turned on the flashlight. "Since you all have flashlights, I have some tasks to give you." There was an explosion at the power plant. There should be many women injured, but still alive. You go and rescue those women who are still alive. If you can solve it, if you can't, you can call my name loudly and I will go over to help you. My name is Lin Fan. You should all understand it, right? The women nodded one after another. At this time, Someone in the crowd suddenly asked, "Where are the men? What should men do? Need help?" Lin Fan glanced over and asked, "Do you want to save me?" The women turned back and looked at the woman who was speaking. Suddenly being looked at by so many people, the woman took 2 steps back, waved her hands quickly and said, "No, I'm just asking. Since you asked, I will tell you that the purpose of my coming here is to save you women and bring them to my power." The Chinbei power station exploded and the power there has been cut off. "I have ready-made generator set, but I need some technicians to wire me a series of things. You gave me a job, I gave you money and a safe environment. Do you still have any questions?" Lin Fan asked as his eyes scanned the crowd. "No. Without, gone." The women's answers were sparse, and Lin Fan didn't care. He waved his hand and said, "Since there is no doubt, then go and do what I say. It's better for you to work in a team, so it's more convenient." After calming down from the initial excitement, the women turned around at a loss or with doubts, and walked out of the dormitory in small groups holding flashlights or talking on their mobile phones. The girls' dormitory was too far away from the power plant building, and Lin Fan didn't time allow them to walk slowly, and with a thought, hundreds of women flew up in screams. The distance of 1,000 meters passed in the blink of an eye. The screams of the women rang through the air. It started with panic and fear, and then turned into there were all kinds of exciting cheers. When they landed on the ground, hundreds of women felt a little weak. The stimulation just now was stimulating, but there were still some sequelae. In this case, Lin Fan was not in a hurry. After a while, the women all he recovered. Watching the women walking into the dark power plant with flashlights, Lin Fan stood in front of the building and waited quietly. It was too slow for him to search by himself, and even if he could find them, most of them would be men. Having these women work together will save him a lot of trouble. All he needs to do is to heal the injured women. The fact is, just as Lin Fan thought, not long after the women entered, there were women carrying serious injuries one after another. The women came out. Looking at the women being carried out, Lin Fan squatted down and inspected them one by one. He cleaned the wounds that needed to be cleaned, and treated the wounds that did not need to be cleaned directly. As the energy of the wood element surged out, the women who were carried out, they quickly got up. After struggling for nearly 2 hours, hundreds of women walked around the entire power plant building. During this period, Lin Fan also went in several times, and all he encountered was nothing more than being hit by heavy objects. If he doesn't come, he or she is in a similar situation to Cao Shan. As the last woman's wound healed, Lin Fan withdrew his hand and stood up from the ground. His eyes swept over the faces of the women in front of him, and the darkness did not affect Lin Fan's vision. Looking at the women's expressions of shock, gratitude, awe, etc., Lin Fan said, "I have said some things before, but some of you have just been rescued and don't know it clearly, so I'll just reiterate it again. I will take you to my power, and I will give you a safe and comfortable environment. You work for me, and your work remains unchanged. What was before will be what it will be when you get to me. You work hard, and in return, I will give you money. Everything is the same as it was before the end. Do you understand? Clear?" The voices of the women were very neat. Although most of them had doubts or even couldn't believe it, the strength that Lin Fan showed before gave the women a lot of confidence to be able to work in the power plant. The requirements for diplomas are very high. Gao, the women are very smart. After weighing it up, it seems that there is no better choice than following Lin Fan. With 2 consecutive explosions, the current situation of Chinbei power plant is no longer safe. Zombies can come in and out at will. Even if Lin Fan doesn't come today, they have to leave here and find a safe place. Instead of taking the risk of finding a new place, it's better to follow Lin Fan. They are all skilled workers, and if Lin Fan needs their skills, he will never do it. They were playing dirty tricks. Lin Fan didn't know that the women had thought so much in such a short period of time. Seeing that the women agreed happily, Lin Fan was very pleased. He lightly drew his finger in the void in front of him, and the space passage was quickly opened. "Everyone, go in, and don't go back to get any clothes or anything like that. When you get to my place, the corresponding things will be neatly equipped for you." Looking at the group of women with dull eyes, Lin Fan pointed to the space passage, and the meaning was self-evident. Although the scene in front of him was unbelievable, after a brief period of fear and curiosity, the women walked in one after another. After feeling slightly dizzy, when these women's vision became clear, they found that they had arrived in a strange environment. Bright? Very bright? The light shining from the top of the head was very bright, illuminating the entire hospital area like daytime. The women who came from Chinbei power plant, they looked at everything around them curiously, with confusion and surprise in their eyes. "You guys come with me." Finally walking in from the space passage, Lin Fan looked at the women who were still in a daze, waved, and after sensing Zhao Wangqing's position, Lin Fan hurried over. Although he didn't know what Lin Fan was going to do, the women, they were all here, and there was nothing to hesitate about. Naturally, they followed whatever Lin Fan said. All the way to the remote power distribution room of the hospital, from a distance, Lin Fan saw Zhao Wangqing standing in a next to the generator. Electric light surged in his hands, constantly delivering power to the generator. The hospital was able to restore power only because of Zhao Wangqing. However, like Lin Fan, Zhao Wangqing could not move too far. She walked to Zhao Wangqing. Lin Fan held her in his arms, patted her back, and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work." With a smile, Zhao Wangqing raised her head and kissed Lin Fan. "Qiang, it's not hard at all, but I have to stand here and can't go too far away, which is a bit annoying." "Don't bother, I'll rescue you soon." Lin Fan caressed Zhao Wangqing's face with his palm, and Lin Fan smiled. He knew this feeling. "System, exchange me for a photovoltaic power generation unit, the largest one." Now that he has a lot of points, Lin Fan is very tough and speaks very grandly. Ding, 10,000 points have been deducted and the photovoltaic generator set max has been successfully redeemed. The items have been distributed to your personal space. In the system mall, there are a lot of black technologies, such as the photovoltaic generator set max that I redeemed. This photovoltaic generator can be said to have no disadvantages. As long as it is light, it can be charged, no matter it is the sunlight, starlight, firelight, or lights. As long as there is light, this kind of generator can operate normally, and the utilization rate and storage rate are very scary. According to the explanation of the system, when the light energy generator is turned on, the electricity absorbed and converted in a day will be it can supply the entire Magic City for a month. What the hell is this concept? Lin Fan didn't learn this, he couldn't understand it. In short, it's just 2 words, awesome. 3 words, very awesome. This is just the conversion rate, not counting the storage rate. The power storage of this kind of photovoltaic power generation unit is terrifying. After the power reserve is full, even if there is no light energy supplement, based on the power consumption standards before the end of the Magic City, it can be supplied for 10 years. Once fully charged, it can be used for 10 years. Isn't this black technology? Even if the end of the world has not yet come, scientists on Earth may not be able to develop it even if they are given 100 years. He waved his hand and asked the women to get out of the way. With a thought, Lin Fan took out the light generator he had just purchased. In an instant, a behemoth appeared in front of him. Looking at the behemoth in front of him, Lin Fan was dumbfounded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 209. Chapter 209 I don't want what you think, I want what I think. I have the final say. This is, what? Zhao Wanqing stared blankly at the huge metal equipment in front of her. Her eyes were so dull that she almost cut off the power supply to the generator. Lin Fan also wanted to ask, what on earth is this? It's different from when he bought it? Ah, it wasn't this big when I bought it? My lord, your personal space is too small. We use space technology to store the light generator in your personal space. The system's explanation left Lin Fan speechless. In the final analysis, it was because his personal space was too small. This is incredible. The behemoth in front of him was huge. The rectangular base was as big as two houses. 14.5 meters long and 6 to 7 meters high, the rectangular base is all silver and looks very bright. Above the base, there is something like a radar, and there is also a concentrated version of the Eiffel Tower. With Lin Fan's looking around, the radar-like device in front of him began to glow with white light. The cauldron-like radar moved slowly, and finally aimed at the light dropped from above. Seeing this, Lin Fan probably understood that these 8 achievements were collecting light. Yes, and then started to store electricity. He pulled out an instruction manual. It was not thick and had about 100 pages. Lin Fan was not interested in this and shouted to Cao Shan, who was in a daze, asking her to come over. Lin Fan handed her this instruction manual. Your task today is to connect the hospital's power line to this generator to provide normal power supply to the hospital. Later, you will slowly connect the city's power supply system. Do you understand? Cao Shan took the instruction manual, looked at the light generator next to her, swallowed, and nodded. Now that you understand, let's study it carefully. I'll have someone arrange your accommodation and various supplies for you. Work hard. After giving instructions to Cao Shan, Lin Fan walked to Zhao Wanqing, spent 10 points to exchange for an energy stone, and then threw it into the generator. The energy stone acts like oil and can make the generator run normally for a period of time. In this way, Zhao Wanqing it can be liberated. There are not as many as a few hundred people at the generator, so the maid who came over took some of them away. Lin Fan took Zhao Wanqing back to the second floor of the supermarket. Seeing Lin Fan and Zhao Wanqing come back, Lin Fan Yuyu came up and asked, "Is the matter resolved?" "Hold Lin Yuyu and sit on the sofa," Lin Fan responded. "It's settled, I brought back all the surviving women from Qinbei Power Station. These are technical personnel. We don't have to worry about this in the future. Problem. With those women here, any line problems can be solved. Now that it's settled, let's eat. It's getting late, and today should be the latest day for us to eat." Lin Fan's words made Lin Yuyu breathe a sigh of relief. Judging from the current situation in the inner city, it is impossible to live without electricity. In the supermarket, whether steaming rice or cooking vegetables, electricity is used. If the power is cut off, it will be very troublesome. Subconsciously he glanced at the clock on the wall, and before he knew it, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. At this time, he would have already finished dinner and sat on the sofa. After dinner, Lin Fan hugged Suzialuo, who was like a doll. I slumped back on the sofa. Before the Doomsday, I would have worried about whether I would gain weight if I sat down just after eating. But now I have no such worries at all. With my current physical fitness, all the calories carried by those foods will be digested. Fat will accumulate, so there is no possibility of gaining weight. Holding Suzialuo in his arms, Lin Fan looked at Li Yun and the other 3 people who were walking back and forth in the living room to clean up the mess. After the 3 women had completely cleaned up everything, Lin Fan faced the 3 women who came out of the kitchen, waved. "Li Yun, Yi Ran, Qiu Yu, you 3 come over." Suddenly called by Lin Fan, the 3 girls Li Yun who had just walked out of the kitchen were slightly startled. Without hesitation, they walked obediently to Lin Fan. "Lord, do you have anything to say? The three of you have also been on the second floor for a long time. I have seen your performance in all aspects. You have done very well, so I decided to give you the power to reach the sky in one step. From today on, you three and like Yanyan and the others, their status was promoted to level 8 and came under the jurisdiction of Lin Yu. After eating, Li Yun and the other three noticed that Lin Fan had been looking at them, which made the three of them very nervous. They thought there was something they had done that dissatisfied Lin Fan, but they didn't expect that Lin Fan was not satisfied. Fan has prepared such a big surprise for them. Divine power. How many people dream of that? Li Yun and the three girls usually talk about it in private and don't dare to think about it at all. After all, they are married wives. After having children, they would definitely not be as clean and noble as mistresses like Lin Yu. They did not dare to expect Lin Fan's recognition and become a superior mistress. But the result was far beyond their expectations. They could not even imagine it. It actually came true. Although it is shameful for mother and daughter to talk about it together, they hope that their daughters can climb up step by step. After all, Lu Minjiao and the others are pure and fully qualified to compete for mistresses. Unlike them, they were already wives, but in the end, Lin Fan didn't mind that they had been married once. This made them so excited that they didn't know what to say. Their eyes were blank. This surprise was too big, beyond imagination. Things that I usually never dare to think about suddenly happened to me. It's like I haven't bought Shuang Sakayu at all. Suddenly, a man knocks on the door with a huge bonus and says that I have won the Shuang Sakayu billion prize. As long as I sign, the billion will belong to me. It's yours. Whoever comes here will be confused and doubt their life. This is the situation of the three Li Yun girls now. Looking at the three Yun girls who were stunned by the surprise, Lin Fan asked, "What's wrong? Is it hard to accept? Don't want it?" Li Yun came back to her senses, looked at each other with Zhang Kaiyu and Yu Yiren beside her, swallowed hard, nodded and said, "I think I really want to, only." "Just what?" Li Yun moved her corner but didn't say anything. Zhang Kaiyu said from the side, "Sister Yun means, after all, we have not given our complete selves to the Lord, and we have even been married and had children. Are we worthy of this?" Zhang Kaiyu's words were very realistic. Zhao Yanyan and the other girls sitting on the sofa were silent after hearing this. In today's society, although most women are very open and have fun, changing grooms every day, some even achieve the goal of killing 100 people. The achievement of killing thousands of people, but it has to be said that many women still pay great attention to this aspect. Not only women, but men are particularly important in this regard. No matter how those female dogs on the internet criticize or make remarks about cerebral palsy, a certain complex that has been passed down by the Eastern Empire for thousands of years is almost imprinted in the DNA and cannot be erased. It was like this before the end of the world, but now that it is the end of the world, Lin Fan has an unattainable status, and wives like them seem too insignificant. They are already very satisfied with having a night of pleasure and a good status, and they don't even dare to. If you think too much, you may even feel inferior. The entire city of Judgment now has more than 5,000 people, and tens of thousands of them are moving forward. There are many who are beautiful here for the first time. Their competitiveness is not ordinary. Compared with the other party, there is obviously no comparison between them. Lin Fan can completely reward those women with divine power, such as Yerulan who came to the second floor today, or people like Wang Ziwen and Lu Yuer. In the eyes of Li Yun and the others, Yerulan and the others are more suitable. Zhang Kaiyu's words made the living room quiet. Lin Fan grabbed Suziolo's little hand and played with it. The expression on his face did not change. "I ask you, who has the final say in the city of judgment? Li Yun, you let's talk." "Lord, it's you." "Is it me? Why do I feel like what I said doesn't count?" Just like just now, I just said a word and was rebutted by the three of you. As soon as Lin Fan finished speaking, the three girls, Li Yun, were so frightened that they knelt down in front of Lin Fan, their heads almost buried on the ground. No, we never dared to question your orders. We just felt that the three of us were not worthy of you and were afraid of being humiliated. What do you think? Do I need you to feel that? I don't want you to think, I want me to feel. I can give my power to whomever I want, and what do you know? Do you really understand all men? At this point, Lin Fan propped up his body, lifted Li Yun's chin, looked at her somewhat panicked mature face, lowered his head and whispered in her ear, you are not a man, how do you know how good a wife is? For example, when I lie down, you know how to sit up, and when I pat your butt, you know how to change positions. These all take time to settle. The women in the living room were all very powerful, and Lin Fan didn't lower his voice deliberately. Almost everyone heard it clearly. Zhao Yanyan's eyes were filled with admiration, and she giggled, my lord, I know this too. He raised his head and glared at Zhao Yanyan, ignoring the smiling faces of Li Saiki and Li Yun, and asked, do you have any more questions? At this time, the three girls, Li Yun, Zhang Kaiyu, and Yu Yiren, had all raised their heads, placing their slender fingers on their knees. Their postures were indescribably eye-catching. Lin Fan said it so clearly that the three girls shook their heads. Lord, we have no problem. The three girls of Yu Yiren were indescribably excited at this time. Lin Fan's attention made them feel so happy. They originally thought that they would be like this for the rest of their lives, and they were even prepared to use this status to serve Lin Fan for the rest of their lives. Until they grew old, they left here of their own accord. Unexpectedly, Lin Fan didn't mind their status as wives at all, and even gave them divine power, which moved them beyond measure. He waved to Li Yun, and Li Yun understood, take 2 steps forward and crawl in front of Lin Fan. As the eldest sister of the two of them, today I will give you the power of space. This ability is very strong, but correspondingly, it will be difficult to improve it. This kind of power is very important for the future development of the force, so I hope you have to work hard, understand? Li Yun's heart was lifted. Inexplicably, she felt the heavy responsibility on her shoulders. Lord, please rest assured that my subordinates will definitely live up to your expectations and will definitely do their best to raise the space power to a higher level so that the Lord can share your worries. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 210. Chapter 210. The joys and sorrows of human beings are not the same. I just think they are noisy. It is too difficult to upgrade the space power level. We are only at LV7 now. Promotion requires 1 million experience. Are you kidding me? Simply now, the space power has met the requirements. The space portal can span hundreds of kilometers. If the city is used as a base, it is completely sufficient. Now the space ability can be put aside for the time being. With Li Yun here, the space ability can be slowly improved. Lin Fan's idea is that there are still a lot of points anyway, and he can definitely get another high-level ability, even this one. It doesn't matter that high-level abilities are just for fun. He has a lot of points now, and they will get more and more points in the future. As the strength of the female warriors increases, it is estimated that before long, there may not be enough zombies to kill in the Magic City. The smart zombies directly took away more than 10 million zombies to find trouble in the military region. Lin Fan had no idea of helping his enemies. It would be interesting if the military region was wiped out by smart zombies. When the time comes, he flies over, kills the intelligent zombies with his backhand, and kills the tide of zombies at the same time. Wouldn't that be a pleasure? Moreover, the area over the military area is relatively empty, so he can use his moves as much as he wants. If the smart zombies fail to destroy the military area, it doesn't matter. Then he will play with the military area. With tens of millions of zombies, the military area can win. It was also a tragic victory. At that time, he could easily destroy the military region, saving both worry and effort. Ding. After deducting 10,000 points, the space ability has been taught. While thinking, the system beeped. The points required for teaching high-level powers have increased tenfold, from the previous 1,000 points to 10,000 points. Fortunately, Lin Fan had already been mentally prepared. The system had given a prompt very early. Looking at Li Yun, the space around Li Yun's body, who was fusing the space powers, was faintly rippled. This was an abnormality caused by the fusion of powers. Different powers' ability, the strange effects brought about are also different. The time required to integrate the superpower is very short. As the faint space fluctuation disappears, Li Yun slowly opens his eyes. Thank you, Lord, for your gift. Li Yun's eyes were full of joy. She had the power of space, and she also had the capital to become stronger. All of this was given to her by Lin Fan. For Lin Fan, she felt indescribable gratitude and admiration in her heart. If it weren't for Lin Fan, she would never have what she has now. Don't thank me, you have achieved all of this through your own efforts. If you don't perform well, I won't consider giving you space powers. Lin Fan is never stingy when it comes to his women. Li Yun and the others did not give him the first time, but they brought back their daughter, right? Besides, Li Yun and the others have no habit of messing around. If they didn't, they wouldn't be able to enter the supermarket gate at all, and he, Lin Fan, was not a picky person. Nestling next to Lin Fan, Lin Yuyu looked at Li Yun curiously. Li Yun, what are the abilities of space powers? Is it awesome? Show it, show it. Zhao Yanyan was making noises nearby. Li Yun heard this and subconsciously looked at Lin Fan. Everyone wants to see it, so just show it and don't destroy anything in the room. Li Yun heard the words, stood up from the ground, and used the space power for the first time. Li Yun was still a little nervous. After standing there for a moment, under the gaze of the girls, Li Yun's figure suddenly disappeared and appeared 1 meter away in an instant. Instantly. Shifting is the simplest way to use spatial abilities. However, Li Yun's current power level is still low and he can only teleport a distance of 1 meter. This is a real teleport, not a visual illusion caused by too fast speed. Deception. After the first time, Li Yun teleported much more smoothly. In the living room, under the gaze of Lin Yuyu and others, Li Yun's figure kept disappearing and reappearing, each time at a distance of 1 meter. After teleporting 7 or 8 times, Li Yun stopped. The load of space powers on the body is far greater than that of ordinary powers. If he teleports, he has to withstand some pressure from space on his body in order to complete the teleportation. This is also a limitation for Li Yun. One factor is the teleportation distance. Even if there is sufficient energy, with Li Yun's current physical fitness, if the teleportation distance exceeds 1 meter, the body may not be able to withstand the pressure of space on the body, resulting in visceral tissue rupture, or body surface capillaries. Blood vessels spurt out blood. The stronger the pressure on the body, the greater the damage caused. If Li Yun attempts to teleport 5 meters away now, his body may disappear and reappear as a corpse. After teleporting 7 or 8 times in a row, Li Yun's face was a little pale, but the joy in his eyes could not be concealed. Seeing Li Yun's staggering steps, Mu Yuking, who was closest, quickly stood up to support her, and then sit down on the sofa. Is this a space power? Isn't that awesome? Was that the legendary teleportation just now? It disappears in a swish and appears in a swish. Li Saiki kept gesticulating with her little hands, with indescribable excitement on her little face. She looked away from Li Yun and looked at Yu Yiren and Zhang Kaiyu, who were kneeling obediently in front of them. Lin Fan looked at Yu Yiren. She waved. Yu Yiren had the softness of the women in the Jiangnan water town, and her temper was as gentle as water. Seeing Lin Fan's gesture, she obediently crawled up to Lin Fan. Yiren, your character is like water, so I have prepared the water element power for you. Water is the source of life. Everyone understands the importance of water. As the apocalypse becomes longer, water resources may become more important in the future. It's very lacking. When the time comes, it will be up to you. You. Yiren nodded her head lightly, looked at Lin Fan with her beautiful eyes without blinking, and said softly, my lord, this subordinate can do it. Smiling slightly, Lin Fan put his hand on Yu Yiren's head and said silently in his heart system, teach the water element power, target Yu Yiren. Ding. Deduct 1000 points and start imparting superpowers now. 1000 points disappeared, and the water element in Lin Fan's body was separated into a seed, which flowed into Yu Yiren's body along his arm. Waves of sober breath came to his face, and the air became much purer. The water element quietly nourishing Yu Yiren's body, it didn't take long for Yu Yiren to slowly open his eyes. After integrating the water element power, Yu Yiren's eyes became more and more moving, as if there was a clear spring flowing all the time. See, looking into those eyes, it's like seeing a pool of blue waves, which makes people feel relaxed and happy. Thank you, Lord. Get well. Lifting up his hand, he pulled Yu Yiren up. His white and flawless little hands were so tender, as if water would drip out with just a little effort. After letting Yu Yiren sit on the sofa, Lin Fan looked at the last remaining person. Zhang Kaiyu didn't even need Lin Fan to speak. Zhang Kaiyu realized what Lin Fan meant and took the initiative to crawl over and put her chin on Lin Fan's hand. She spent a lot of time with Lin Fan this afternoon. Although Zhang Kaiyu enjoyed the feeling of just wandering around the city wall. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, now only gold is left, I think it should be suitable for you. Ding. Deduct 1000 points and start imparting superpowers now. The golden elemental power flowed into Zhang Kaiyu's body along Lin Fan's palm. As the power began to merge, a sharp aura emitted from Zhang Kaiyu's body. After the fusion of the superpower was completed, the sharp aura was also absorbed by Zhang Kaiyu. Withdrawing it back into the body, he raised his arm. Following Zhang Kaiyu's thoughts, the whole palm soon turned into a sharp knife. He waved it twice casually, and the air made a tearing scream. This was just the gold element. A superficial application, if Zhang Kaiyu thought about it, he could condense various metal weapons at will. The several major elements were almost the same. After teaching all three powers, Lin Fan subconsciously glanced at the points. Points, 18,0140 before it was 30,2110. Two low-level powers were exchanged for 3,000 tang knives and 5,000 watches. This is 100,000 points. 10,000 points were exchanged for light energy generators and teaching powers. Up to 12,000 points, unknowingly, only 180,000 points were left from 300,000 points. However, the man-eating vines in the sewer ate a lot of zombie rats, and the points increased by 30 points. Well, sustainable development. After reading the points, Lin Fan's eyes swept over the three girls of Zhang Kaiyu, and their attribute columns appeared in front of him. Character, Zhang Kaiyu. Strength, 15. Agility, 13. Intelligence, 14. Physique, 15. Faith value, 100. Ability, Gold Element Control LV1. Character, Li Yun. Strength, 16. Agility, 15. Intelligence, 16. Physique, 18. Faith value, 100. Ability, Space Control LV1. Character, Yu Yiren. Strength, 14. Agility, 14. Intelligence, 15. Physique, 16. Faith value, 100. Ability, water element control level 1. Among the attributes of the three women, Li Yun has the highest four-dimensional attributes, especially the physical attribute, which will soon exceed 20 OK. After all, space powers are high-level powers, and their strengthening effect on oneself is very outstanding. However, it is a bit difficult to improve, which is 10 times that of ordinary powers. Maybe Li Yun can only reach LV6 when Yu Yiren and the others reach level 7. This is because she has worked extra hard. Otherwise, L6 is probably still far away. 10 times the experience of the same level is simply disappointing. Wow! It actually froze. The sudden exclamation attracted Lin Fan's attention. You know it's summer now, why is it frozen? The voice was easy to identify. It was Li Saiki. Lin Fan looked over. When he saw the ice ball in Yu Yiren's hand, at this time, everyone was stunned. Where did this ice cube come from? Didn't he pass on the water element power to Yu Yiren? What happened to this ice cube? Li Saiki's voice not only attracted Lin Fan's attention, but also, everyone in the living room looked towards Yu Yiren. Seeing Lin Fan and others looking over, Yu Yiren's face turned slightly and explained water and ice are interconnected, and when water meets cold, it will freeze ice, ice turns into water when heated. The change between the two depends on the temperature, so I tried to change it. The water element constitutes water. The water element is controlled by me. I took out the temperature of the water element that makes up water. Originally, I just wanted to give it a try, and this is what happened. Looking at the ice cube in Yu Yiren's hand, Lin Fan thought for a while, raised his hand, and the water element circulated, finally forming a water ball in his hand. Looking at the water ball in his hand, Lin Fan twitched his horns. What is this? Isn't this typical? Brain, I know it. Eyes, I know it. Hands. What are you talking about? Giving up on the idea of turning water into ice, Lin Fan silently opened the system mall. Looking at the dazzling array of high-level abilities, Lin Fan looked up and down, thinking constantly in his mind. What ability should I exchange for?